Okay, hi, it's 4:58 p.m. on Monday, December 1st, 2014, and I intended to do this about half an hour earlier, but camera wasn't working, so hopefully it's working now. Anyway, so something that, yeah, what do I want to say? Actually, people have been watching at least part of these. It's interesting. Like I noticed that like the first two videos had like yesterday about 17 views, which is, and like I'm guessing, people, it's not like just people on Facebook, some people on, yeah, somebody like on YouTube left a comment. But anyway, all right, what I want to do is like, I want to focus exclusively on happiness, because like, I was getting into this like, this Buddhist second noble um, truth stuff, with the not wanting. But for some reason, I'm finding that it's not a direct enough route to happiness. Like when I when I worked on my happiness about 10 years ago, it was like relatively direct. And no, I'm pretty much doing a lot of what I was doing back then. And so, because I, like basically, that's what I'm trying to like um, just in a certain sense discover and like implement in my own life, just the most direct route to happiness, because again, this is based on like the understanding that happiness is all there is, that, happiness is the highest good, all that stuff. So, um, so yes, I'm gonna focus on that. I'm gonna focus on that, and so hopefully it'll be good. I just want to bring this down. The camera won't allow me to adjust the up and down unless I like adjust the back and forth stuff, whatever. So I don't know. Okay, it's hot. It's hot. I just opened the window, but I should probably open it more. That's all right. I'll just like I shall, maybe it'll get cool. I opened it a little, but all right. What else? Yeah. Now this is like a bit difficult and like all right. What happened yesterday is that I I yeah, I thought like I looked at the timer, it was actually 80 minutes into it, and like I looked at it and it said 120, and for some reason I thought it was like 120 minutes. So at the end of the last video, I'm saying, yeah, 2 hours is enough. 2 hours is enough. It's really only just like 80 minutes, but so it's 5 o'clock, and yeah, I mean, like that's part of this experiment, to see how long I can talk, and I wanna just really make this about happiness. Ooh, I've got a fan over there. I ordinarily just use it during the summer, but I think I'm gonna like turn it on. I've got a little remote control here, so I can like turn it off if I need to. I'll be right back. Hold on. All right, so, because it really is hot, and like, I didn't want to open the window too much, because then what happens is it gets really cold, and, whatever. Let me turn it up one. Okay, should get some kind of a breeze. So anyway, so yeah, I'm just gonna like focus on happiness, and the purpose is, I mean, come on. The purpose, and this is like for you as well as for me as well as for you. Everything is about happiness. That's all there is. I mean, like we don't really focus on it all that much because it's not in our culture. Because our culture is kind of like extremely stupid in a lot of ways. But when you think about it, happiness is all there is. That's it's our basic goal. If stuff in our life isn't making us happy, we either like change or get rid of it, or whatever. Um, so that's the premise behind this. Because I mean, all right, in my life, actually, I want to start talking more calmly, and I hope I've got the right sound or whatever. I don't know. So in recently, like I've been working on kind of like leading humanity to this new causal consciousness that free will is an illusion, and to the extent and as quickly as we understand that, we can create a much better world. And I mean, it's I guess what appeals to me about that is like it's such a monumental undertaking. It truly is, the shifting of a, you know, essentially new consciousness. It's humanity going from the pervasive belief that stuff is up to us to the acknowledgement that absolutely nothing is. And I can't think of anything more amazing, I mean, like maybe if we figured out what happens after we die, or if we, contacted aliens, maybe that might be more amazing. I don't know. But I can't think of, anything more amazing than this kind of shift in consciousness. But I mean, like 50% of Americans still believe that Adam and Eve existed and the Garden of Eden and stuff. So I have to kind of like consign myself to the fact that we have not been destined to be the most sharp, logical creatures on the planet. I mean, we are kind of like destroying everything, and it's not our fault. But so anyway, so like I mean, I get, I know every year around the time of the holidays, it becomes more difficult to advocate for free will being an illusion because, well, because the people who are all religious are getting all religious, and, with the Christmas coming up and all, for whatever reason, but come January, February, March, it'll be much easier again. But, so I figured I'll work on my happiness until that happens. And it's not like that, that I've stopped working on the free will stuff, It's just that, what is it? Well, it's like it's a long-term goal, so it doesn't have like immediate payoff. It's kind of like doing a lot of work and not getting so much in return so very soon. So this is kind of like more for me. This is kind of like, I'm doing the work and like fine. It may take a while, and it's kind of cool to do it anyhow. But this is just because I want to feel happier. I mean, like I was like working a lot, and I thought certain things were going to happen that actually haven't happened as much as I would have liked. I mean, like we were advocating for free will being an illusion, and like Sam Harris, I think, caught wind of our buzz because we were trying to create a buzz, and then like a couple of years after we started promoting this, he comes out with his book, and it was a short book. I mean, it's like 88 pages, 89 pages, whatever. So I'm sure it didn't take him more than a month to write. And but yeah, it hasn't like this whole thing hasn't like taken off the way I'd like it to. And so yeah, so this is why I'm like doing this happiness stuff, and why I'm choosing, because I could do this on my own. I could do this, this verbal self-analysis stuff that I was talking about that I do. But I want to change my focus, to a more relaxed speech. I got to do this. Let me try it now. So I guess because like, yeah, when you talk more relaxed, you tend to talk slower, and your mind slows down, and you say less in the amount of time. I don't know. I guess it could be all right. But let's say, and then maybe that's what happens, and I lose my train of thought. Everything's going too slow. So all right, so like oh yeah, I could be doing this on my own, So I'm not really sure why the universe has me making these videos and then has me, take on the additional challenge of making them last really long. I have no idea. It just, it seems like a good thing to me to do to me, and that's how pretty much I think that's how we all guide our lives. We do what appears right to us. And I'm really on a free will thing, so maybe it's because I have my transcendent delusion, free will delusion shirt on. I don't know. Could be like the subliminal thing, but yeah. And the fact that we do what we appear to be right is another way of understanding that we don't have free will. We're hardwired for this, I mean, like, and some people say, well, no, sometimes like we do what we know is wrong. But the Greeks understood this, like, if you're doing something, let's say you're like, hurting someone or stealing something or doing something like that, like what the Greeks said, and it makes sense, is that like at the time you're doing it, you're thinking it's the right thing to do. It's because like the person deserved it. It's because like, there's some rationalization that you are working on. And then like a lot of times, or sometimes it's kind of like the lesser of two evils, like you're in between a rock and a hard place, but you feel like the doing that is like sometimes like that's the reason we go to war sometimes. I mean, like going to war is about like going places and killing people. And so, obviously, in a certain sense that's not so completely right, but given circumstances, it just, it seems the best option. Okay. So happiness. Happiness is cool. Happiness is definitely cool. Because it's what there is. It's what is. It's just like, it's the only thing that is. It's like, and I want to do this. I want to do this because like part of the reason the world is only about, let's say, 65% out of 100 happy. Here in the United States, we're about 70% happy, which isn't all that happy. That's like a C minus, Part of that is because, like, again, we're not very sharp. We're not very intelligent as a species. We're very good at making stuff. I mean, just the fact that you're seeing this on your computer or TV or phone or tablet, lets you know that we have a certain degree of intelligence. I mean, it's not our intelligence, because we don't have a free will, but nonetheless, we've been destined to manifest this this kind of intelligence. But we haven't gotten this happiness stuff right, and I don't know why that is. But here's the thing. So like the more you think about happiness, the more you realize, oh yeah, that is all there is. That really is, what I want when I do whatever I do, and think about whatever I think about, Sometimes we get into these dysfunctional loops where we're like worried about something or angry about something or something like that. But that's kind of like hijacking our reason, And I don't really understand why that happens. It's another kind of like a evolutionary mistake. It's a flaw. I don't want to get into that, but because it's like, I mean, it's not like the negative emotions are negative per se, but the point here is that we just extend them far longer than they're useful for, than they're designed to to serve us. Okay, almost 15 minutes, so that's all right. So this is a kind of a challenge, and I'm tired. So like, I got a little frustrated because yeah, like I was like 4:30. I was here. I was I got myself some like decaf coffee, and I was ready to start, and then like the camera wouldn't work, so I ended up having to like install something and just like uninstall the driver and reinstall it. I'm hoping that tomorrow, if the universe has me do this again, that it'll start again, because otherwise, I may have to like go to a different computer or do something. I don't know. But all right, so happiness. The coolest thing in the world would be if like you get together with your friends. Anytime you have free time, you just like talk about happiness. Um, because it's direct. When you have free time now and you talk to people or you listen to people. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. Um, we talk about a lot of stuff, and stuff is like sometimes important to talk about. It's useful to talk about. It even creates happiness. It's sometimes necessary to talk about. But beyond that, we are in the habit, the custom, because it's been handed down from previous generations to just like have a style and a way of communicating, telling stories, and like back and forth, sharing all this stuff. And a lot of it is actually dysfunctional. If you yeah, I think everybody has some friends that like they just like complain all the time, or complain a lot, and you gotta wonder why they do that. But so the thing is, like, it would be so cool if everybody just started talking about happiness, that happiness became the new thing, and people, had this kind of awakening that, well, it is all there is. Oh, it is a lot more in my control, even though I don't have free will, that, I can like summon it up and evoke it and feel it and express it and amplify it and extend it and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah. But, again, this isn't like about promotion because, like, I don't know. You can't, it's like my job is to lead the horse to water. Can't make him drink. Doesn't want to drink. Can't help that. But here's the thing. I mean, like, no, it's like, it's not just people in general, because come on. I mean, like, I researched happiness. I haven't done that much research on happiness in years because, like, the happiness findings tend to be pretty stable over time. What they found is true 10 years ago and 20 years ago is still true today. And I kind of like learned all that stuff about 10 years ago. So like, when I read happiness stuff, I'm actually reading this book by a researcher, Sonia Lyubomirsky, who's actually the top happiness increase researcher today. What's it called? The How of Happiness. And it's good, but it's most of the stuff I already know, and I could still learn, but whatever. But all right, my point is like, I have thought about this and done shows about it and written about it and talked about it for a long time and a lot, and it's still, well, in my defense, I think what happens is like, if I was within a culture that was equally immersed in it, then yeah, I think that would make things so much easier to like maintain that focus. But I think what happens is like, every time I move from that kind of focus to just like engagement with the world in whatever ways, just hanging out with people, or just then all of a sudden I'm stuck in the same distractive mindset that people tend to kind of like accept as the way things are, the way things have to be, and the way things maybe even should be. It's unfortunate. But anyway, so like that's, I think I'm trying to, say that this is kind of like why I want to do this. I want to focus more on happiness, and it's not just that. I mean, when I do my meetups, again, I'm leading 12 of them and attending another maybe 4 or 5, whatever, on happiness each month. But like in these meetups, you know, as the host, whatever, the moderator, a lot of my job is not to talk so much, but to get people talking and thinking, because that's, you know, people like to do that. You know, I like to have people figure things out for themselves rather than just like taking it in. So like basically, I think like I don't really explore happiness as deeply and fully as I'd like to during these events. So this is, I think, maybe an opportunity to do that. Okay, happiness. This guy that I mentioned, I think yesterday, who, you know, got so into it that he decided to dedicate this entire year to happiness, and he's running 2 out of the ordinarily 4 Saturday meetups in Manhattan on happiness now. He wanted to do that, or I asked him, and he said yes, and then that's what actually I think got him really into it. But you know, before, like about a month ago, we were in a meeting, and I was kind of like, saying to we were like basically defining happiness, because it's important to understand what it is we're talking about. And I was saying, well, happiness is all there is. Happiness is God. Happiness is so fundamental, essential, an aspect of our being. Without happiness, nothing is of value. You know, the only value anything has is because it creates happiness. And I was going on like this, you know, just kind of like expressing a spiritual dimension to happiness, just basically giving it an environment. For example, like, you know, when you talk about sports, sports has been around for so long, it has a very detailed, multifaceted environment. You can talk about the teams, the coaches, the positions, you know, the plays, whatever it is. You know, there's a lot to talk about. You know, it's got this expansive conceptual environment, I guess, and like so. But happiness doesn't. So actually, I was trying to create that. I'm still trying to create that because I think it needs that. And so like I think we can do that now here. Okay, it's a little cooler. That's good. A little thirsty, but I'm going to hold off. Okay. So happiness. A lot of what happiness is about, it really is about, you know, this Buddhist thing of not wanting. In other words, like a lot of Zen, a lot of just meditation, whether it's Buddhism, yoga, whatever, Hinduism, it's about accepting reality as it is. Not that we don't recognize that it could be better in different ways, you know, because I think a lot of what our work as a humanity is about that, you know, improving, making reality better. But the problem is that oh, I lost my train of thought. I'm tired. Okay. Happiness. So we were talking about like, oh yeah, that basically our minds get diverted from stuff, and in other words, like instead of wanting happiness, we want, like for example, in my experience, I really wanted this camera to work earlier. I went out for a haircut earlier today, and the person I wanted to cut it wasn't there, so you know, I'll maybe go back later in the week. I've got a few things I have to do. You know, you know, about the free will thing. I want certain things to happen. We all, you know, are filled with all these wants, and the irony and the tragedy is that a lot of times it's these wants that we predict for. There's 2 parts of this. One is that, like, and this is according to the research, a lot of what we want, even though we kind of want it because we predict it's going to make us happier, it just doesn't. You know, this Harvard psychologist, Daniel Gilbert, wrote a book where he highlights a lot of the findings about this. I think it's called Stumbling on Happiness. And he basically just makes the point we're just not, as human beings, very good at predicting what's going to make us happy. We pursue things sometimes for years, decades, thinking, oh yeah, when I get this, when I am this, when I know this and all that, then that's going to be like so blissful, and it's not, because like unfortunately we don't understand happiness that much. I mean, like the researchers are beginning to, because they finally started studying it since the mid-50s, but much of that information hasn't translated into the popular mind. So that's the first thing. So basically, like, we immerse ourselves in activities that are ostensibly designed to make us happier, but they just don't seem to work. And the second part is that, like, I don't know if the expression, like, not being able to see the forest for the trees applies to this, but like we get so immersed in the goal, the means to happiness, we lose sight of the goal. I mean, I think another expression is like that, to keep one's eye on the prize, to kind of like, not be distracted by the means, because that's what happens, like, um, and it's a very, very strong, pull toward, 'cause like we, for example, like we take on a project, and we like to succeed. So success is the goal, and like progress towards success is also, pleasant, but a lot of times, maybe we'll work too hard at it, or for too long, or we will like not keep in mind the I think the necessity, the wisdom of like, while we're doing what we're doing. I'm like teaching too much, because this stuff I kind of know, and it's good for me to like repeat it and stuff, but I think I want to try to break new ground, and I could focus on the world. Um, oh, I wanted to do something. I don't know if I could do this while I'm recording. I'm gonna try, because like I noticed that there was too much. The hold on. I wonder if this is gonna work. All right, testing 1, 2. I think this. All right, so I'm gonna like lower the color intensity a bit, because it needs to. It was like too. It seemed like I'd just come back from the beach and I hadn't. I don't know. I guess that's all right. And so hopefully, I guess it worked. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, happiness. No, I want to focus. All right. If happiness is what there is, then I think, understanding what happiness is, I think, is the thing under happiness that I think to a great extent needs most to be explored. I mean, like, in one way, it just doesn't matter, because nothing matters, because like, we're here, we live, we die, and who knows what happens afterwards. I mean, like, I mean, you might have the belief that, well, actually, it does matter, because like, if we don't get things right in a certain extent here, then, then we might not get into this like very, very happy place when we die and stuff. But that doesn't, I mean, I tend to believe we all go to this blissful place. I have no evidence, no proof, no whatever, but it just makes me feel good, because like otherwise, I'm not going to believe that like some people are so horrible that they're going to like spend the rest of eternity like, in hellfire. That's a sick belief. and to attribute that to a loving God, oh man, we're so delusional. You know, religion makes and keeps people so stupid. It's unfortunate because I mean, religion has some good stuff to it, but like, it just hasn't evolved in like 2, 3 thousand years. Really sick stuff. Um, but so like, you know, in a certain sense, happiness. Yeah, if you're happy, great. If you're not happy, that's fine because you're going to die eventually, and who knows what happens next, you know. But I mean, the way I figure it, fine, but we're still here. As long as we're here, we might as well be happy. You know, I mean, what else is there? What else is there to do? You know, um, God, I can't like stop teaching. This sucks. Because then my next point was going to be like, you know, we're all so, you know, caught up in competing, and yeah, that applies to me too, I guess. I don't know. But happiness, all right. Um, happiness. Now, what else? I mean, like it it resists being understood. Um, sometimes, like people, I don't know. This is now I'm trying to explain or understand why it resists being understood. Why don't we get it? You know, why isn't this world blissed out when we have more than enough resources, more than enough intelligence and all this to have that be? And I think this can be understood within the context of good and evil. Okay, and you know, here's where scientists, people who reject religion, um, actually kind of adhere to a religion of their own because you know, because they tend to make pronouncements over what they just haven't observed, but what seems evident in so many ways. And I guess what I'm talking about is like a scientist, a naturalist sometimes will say, you know, there is no such thing as good and evil. They're like social constructs. They're, you know, it's all relative. No, I'll tell you why. Because like, for example, if you want to like that thing on this thing is a guitar, okay? We define it as a guitar, you know, whatever its strings, whatever it has. And once we've defined it, we can say, well, does it exist? Yes. You know, based on how we've defined it, it exists. So the same can be said about goodness and evil. And then, like, we can just go to, we don't even have to make this up. This guy, John Locke, British philosopher, he, um, he defined goodness as that which creates happiness. And it makes a lot of sense. What's good? Good is what makes us feel good. Good is what makes other people feel good. Now, yes, sometimes you can do things that make you feel good and make other people feel bad. And um, and that's why another guy, British guy, Jeremy Bentham, utilitarian philosopher, he said, well, I said this a couple of, I don't mind repeating myself, because you know, this is important stuff. He said, well, what's the measure of goodness? The measure of goodness is what creates the greatest happiness for the greatest number. So like, you know, so, you know, you're doing something that makes you happy and makes other people unhappy. That might not be so good, you know. It might actually even be evil, you know. But so anyway, what I'm trying to say is like, just if you define goodness what creates happiness and evil is what creates suffering, and I would include pain in suffering. I want to get into this. Well, basically, essentially, just finishing my thought. Then yes, good and evil do exist. Then the question though becomes, um, how do we account for them? Or how do we understand them? But yeah, no, like I wanted to before I do that. Some people say, well, you know, pain isn't bad. It's only suffering that's bad. You know, that's nonsense. You know, you ask a pregnant woman, or ask a woman who's giving birth, or ask a, you know, somebody, a soldier who's just got like all shot up. and um, and it's like pain is evil. Pain hurts. That's without pain there is no suffering. That's what I'm saying. So like so it's not just like, yes, there's certain kinds of pain that we can go through and we won't suffer it more. Because a lot of times we make things worse by suffering things that don't have to be as bad, don't have to feel as bad. But I just want to, no, pain is evil. And then, this is good. Like, so, like, because then some people say, well, no, you need pain because without pain, you wouldn't appreciate pleasure. That is like such nonsense. And the reason it's nonsense, because like if you believe in heaven and like if you're like at least I think 80% of us here in the United States, then you do, basically um, the standard conception of heaven is a place where you go to where there is no suffering, there is no pain, and it's like eternal. So you're telling me that you can you can exist immersed in complete, ever-present, powerful, complete bliss in this place called heaven, but you can't do it here? That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. So in other words, like applying the principle, if it would work there, then it must work here, in principle. Um, and that also goes to like, in other words, like, yeah, no, what else? Oh, the other thing I want to get into, like, no, I want to go back to this. This gets a bit into like the free will thing because it has to. One of the reasons people refuse to believe that their wills aren't theirs, that they don't have a free will, is because, like, well, if they're fucking up, if they're doing things that are evil, wrong, and they don't have a free will, well, that means that God is making them do it, because God is sovereign and all powerful, omnipotent, and that's like that's a tough thing to accept for a lot of people. And I'd rather not accept it. I was raised to believe in an all good God. But I mean, if you wanna be truthful, if you wanna be accurate, factual about reality, you can't escape the fact that like that an all powerful governing being has to be responsible for both good and evil. So here's like, and I mean, I'm not sure how related to happiness this is, but you think about this. There's one thing. There's a lot in life that doesn't make sense. I don't know, just a lot in life that doesn't make sense. Why people don't understand that cause and effect makes free will impossible. Okay, simple. Everything has a cause. Game over for free will. Okay, how people don't understand that, I don't get that. But I will I will get into the habit of putting on this stupid thing before I do the videos. But like I just get tired of like having my glasses slide down my nose. But all right. So like with this evil thing. So all right. So like we're forced to all right. What I want to talk about is like, imagine you were God. Okay, now like I think it's our conception. It's our, even though God, we have to like attribute the evil in the world to God also, not just the good. But we tend to kind of like believe. We tend to consider that God is really good. God is much better than we are. We are. God. I mean, like God is good. And all right. Now ask yourself this. I mean, we can pose this relative to the free will question, but much more importantly, relative to pain. And so, like, consider like forget about God's goodness, all right? Consider that God is all powerful, that like, that the God created this reality, and there was nothing to create it from except for God, so like whether the reality existed eternally and God in the reality. I tend to be a pantheist, like pantheism is the belief or the understanding that God and the universe are synonymous. So however you want to frame it, we have this conception of God as the being that created us, created this world. Okay, so the question becomes, why in heaven or on earth would God have created pain? That is, again, like I was going back to like, there are many things that we don't understand, that don't make sense. But to me, this question is the quintessential question of our existence, that doesn't make sense. And the reason it doesn't make sense, we are hardwired biologically, genetically. This is a drive. This is like, we're hardwired this, and we share this with all living organisms, even plants probably. We're hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So we're hardwired to enjoy pleasure and not enjoy pain. Why would God have created us that way? If pain is not good and pleasure, happiness is good, and you're all powerful, why would you create beings that are capable of suffering pain? And then, like, again, remember, like, we don't have a free will. Life is a movie, so, like, everything that happens, God is making happen. So then why would you create these, creatures susceptible to pain and then just thrash them, like as many of us are thrashed through life? I mean, you can't avoid it. You can live the happiest life in the world. You have experienced pain. You're probably experiencing pain on a daily basis. According to the research, the happiest among us are only happy about 50% of the day. About 30% of the day they're not happy, and another 20% they're neither happy nor unhappy, which, so that's the question, like, because then, like, you would hope, God, I would hope this. I mean, like, because, like, even though I blame God for creating this pain, I would hope that God doesn't suffer. I mean, in a way, He does, because, in other words, like, part of pantheism or part of just reality, part of logic, basically dictates that if God created the world from God, then everything in the world is God. It's a manifestation of God. So we're God. So, like, in other words, when we suffer, feel pain and stuff, then in essence that's God suffering. But on the other hand, I kind of like, that makes sense on one level. On another level, you might want to consider that, well, I mean, we may be suffering, but like God may be blissing out with all the angels in heaven, whatever, right? In other words, like, just because, like, for example, like, there might be part of our body that's in pain, but we may not be conscious of the pain. And everybody has experienced this, like, like, for example, like, you're in pain from something and then you watch a movie and you get so immersed in the movie you forget about the pain. You're just not focused on it, you're not feeling it, you're really not conscious of it. So, like, from that standpoint, it could be that God, can choose to, like, feel our pain or not, but anyway, that's the thing. That's the thing. Why would God have created pain? It makes no sense at all. That's the only thing to me that really, in terms of making sense in life, just matters. Every other question is, like, pretty inconsequential, trivial. All right, so, like, and the answer to that, who knows? We can't answer that. I mean, who knows? But all right, so I don't know what the purpose of that diversion was, because, like, maybe it was interesting, maybe it wasn't. I think it was a diversion from the task. What is the task? the task for me, and hopefully for you, is to kind of like to think more about happiness in order to feel more happiness every moment of every day. You know, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to feel good because, like, you know, I could be meditating, and actually, I could be blissing out by meditating. But actually, no, that's interesting. Like, I could theoretically, but for whatever reason, my not having a free will, I find that like the universe hasn't been allowing me to do that recently. You know, I've been like immersed in these podcasts and other stuff. So, but anyway, so at least we're here, you know, and the universe is allowing us to do this. Thank God, thank goodness. And, but still, you know, but we divert ourselves, you know, we divert ourselves from the prize. And that's, you know, damn it, people, you're so fucking stupid. I'm just a stupid. We're all fucking stupid. I mean, because think about it. We've learned, how many of you out there have learned like advanced math or have learned a second or third language or have learned, you know, think of the things you've learned and think of the hours you spend like on an instrument, like people who play the piano or guitar or something. How many hours have you spent learning how to play that damn thing? Okay, and just think about all the time you spend doing whatever you do, you know, and then like compare that to one, the fact that happiness is all you really want, that happiness is all anyone really wants, and two, that happiness is a skill, you know, that just as like if you're playing the piano, the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it, or if you're learning a language, the more you study, the better you can speak it. It's the same thing with happiness. The more time we devote to it, the better we get at it. That's the key. I mean, that's, you know, you talk about, you know, happiness, about, you know, what the secret is, what the secret is of happiness, of life. Because if you've got the secret of happiness, you've got the secret of life, because that's all there is. I'm sorry. So then, yeah, the question becomes, how are we so fucking stupid as a people that we don't get this, that we're not teaching our kids this in school? We prefer to teach them European history and like whatever else, you know, stuff that they're going to forget by the time they get to like, you know, graduate from high school. I mean, like, we teach them all this nonsensical, trivial stuff, and we just fail to teach them the most important thing, the most powerful and greatest gift that we could give them. We just don't. And again, it's like, you know, within, so like, all right, so, you know, it seems like I'm kind of like bashing humanity, but, you know, on the other hand, it's not us. We don't have a free will. So if we're fucking up in that way, if we're not really teaching our kids or ourselves, if we're not focused on what we should be focused on, we're the last people that we can logically blame. Because if we had that's another, you know, got to go back between the free will thing and all, like, it explains a lot. Think about this. If you had a free will, if you truly had a free will, meaning that like, well, you could decide what you're going to do, meaning that you can decide what you're going to think, that what you think and do is up to you. Are you trying to tell me that you would decide to like spend half of your day not happy? That you would decide to just like immerse yourself in this worry and anger and boredom and whatever else kind of like negativity, you know, we're just subject to? No, no. If you had a free will, you would be blissed out every moment of every day, and so would I. And you know, and all right, so like, because we don't have a free will, we can't do that. But, you know, if we're lucky, because it's all about luck, God, the universe, causality, natural law, laws of nature, whatever, everything that, whatever governs this movie we're in, if we're lucky, it will get us to awaken to this essential, quintessential reality that happiness is all there is, and happiness is all that we want. And happiness is all that has true value. Anything else we value has its value only because of the happiness it creates. Yeah. So that's the thing. So like, it's unfortunate because if we had a free will, then we'd be doing all this stuff. And all right, so like, yeah, so then you might ask yourself, well, we can't do anything about it, because we don't have a free will. Yes, but, well, all right, right now, if we're 50 minutes into this, 50 and a half minutes into this, and like, if you're getting this, yeah, you don't have a free will, but you're getting it, and if it means something to you, and if you find it important, and you find it somewhat persuasive, you might like buy this book, The How of Happiness, or go on the internet and just like Google happiness and just watch some of the TED Talks, some of the videos on happiness, so you understand it more, so that you can kind of like be more effective in having happiness be a more pervasive, more ubiquitous part of your everyday, because like, because all right, here's the thing, like with free will, some people say, well, if I don't have free will, then why do anything, because like, everything is fated, nothing's up to me, why bother, life loses all meaning. But no, I'm sorry, like, you don't have free will, but if you're lucky enough to be hearing this and it makes sense to you, if you're lucky enough that it makes sense to you, and if you're lucky enough that you value it enough, and if you're lucky enough that the universe will allow you to work on your happiness, to learn about it, to improve it, that stuff is real. Fine, none of it is up to you, but it's real. In other words, what we do or don't do has consequences. And happiness is the highest consequence. It's what everything is about. Okay. So here's the thing. So yeah, we don't have free will, but to the extent that we think about happiness, we're going to become happier. And if we smiled more, I was like, all right, so I couldn't get my hair cut, so I went into town. I was like eating a bagel at Atlanta Bread Company. I like going there because like, it's like Manhattan. They have like these tables that face outside, so you could like, you could be looking out while you're drinking coffee or whatever. So like, I like to people watch. And so I must have seen at least 50, maybe 100 people walk by. And there's one person that I can remember was kind of like smiling, seemed like, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It'd be great if like the pharmaceuticals created this drug that, fine, they can let them make as much money as they want on it, whatever, but like it would bliss people out, and of course it can't have any substantial side effects, can't make you sick or whatever, but that would be the most awesome pharmaceutical, might even put marijuana out of business. Because why do people like want to smoke marijuana? Why do people want to legalize it and all? Because it helps you feel good. Trust me. It is like, you think like drinking a beer or a glass of wine makes you feel good. If you haven't, indulged in weed, go to Colorado. Do yourself a favor. Or where is it, or Washington, or I guess, as a couple of years, hopefully in Maine, in the East Coast, but just try it. And like, I mean, it's not that you need it to be happy, because again, like my experiment with it, whatever, I mean, like I used to do it as a kid, whatever, we all did it like in high school. But after that, it's like the synthetic cannabis in 2000, between 10 and 12, and I stopped because it's illegal, but like, it's what I'm saying is like, you can be happy without resorting to stuff like that, but like, it's kind of like aspirin, like if you get a headache, I mean, sure, you could tough it out, like, I want to be all natural or whatever, but, if it gets, you take the aspirin or whatever, Tylenol, and, the headache goes away and you feel better. But no, all right, having said that, so like, all right, psychopharmacological means to happiness are certainly possible, and I hope they're working on them, and I hope that they'll succeed because we don't tend as a civilization to value happiness enough to do the work of enhancing it, amplifying it, naturally through simply focusing on it and choosing it and, all that stuff. So like, so if there was just a pill, people would pop it. And here's the thing, like, one of the things that I learned when I started working on my happiness is like once you start raising your level of happiness, you become less tolerant of unhappiness. As a matter of fact, this morning I woke up and I was feeling a bit tense, and I think it was maybe the weather. I don't know. I'm hypersensitive to stuff. And like, so like I start meditating. The mantra that I used was, I have no wants. And it was all right, okay, but it was finally when I finally got up and I was in the shower and stuff, and I said to myself, like, I think I'm gonna like shift back to a more direct form of happiness, and that's actually why I'm doing this about happiness now instead of like talking about not wanting something, because like not wanting, fine, it's a great way to kind of like overcome the diversions, the things that we want that aren't happiness per se, that distract us from our happiness. But that being said, just accessing happiness directly is I think it's a well, all right. There have been some times because like I have two audio tapes in my MP3 player. I have a few others, then I have my music, whatever. But like these two, one of them says, I have no wants, and the other one is actually in my voice saying, I feel completely happy. Okay, and sometimes I think I'm like in a wanting mood. I think we all get that way. We're working on a project, we have something we're hoping that happens, or we get immersed in this goal-seeking stuff, and all of a sudden outcomes are important to us. Our outcomes are what we focus on. And during those times, I've noticed that when I'm listening to my I Have No Wants audio tape, it tends to be even a bit more gratifying than the I feel completely happy. But, all right, having said that, I think those times should be relatively rare, and I think additionally, to the extent, like I haven't been working on this nearly as much as I should and could, and that's telling you a lot because I've studied this so much. So if it's hard for me, it's got to be hard for everyone. But yeah, my guess is like if one were to just like focus on happiness and like feed oneself these happiness messages, then I would guess that like when these fruits are dangled in front of us, these what do you call it, these rings, golden rings or whatever, these prizes, we would say, fine, I'm going to pursue it and maybe, enjoy that it works out and hope it works out, but I'm going to be happy while doing that, in other words, we're not going to sacrifice our happiness, by replacing it with a wanting, of something to work out the way we want it to work out. Yeah. All right, like 6 o'clock, 5:59. And all right, so we've been at this about an hour, and now I'm not going to be fooled like I was last time when I look at the clock. It says 1:20. I'm thinking it's 120 minutes instead of an hour and 20 minutes. No, I want to go 2 hours on this, maybe longer. you know, I mean, like, one thing that keeps me from going longer is that, like, I want to get this up relatively early in the evening, but big deal. You know, I mean, maybe the next one I make, maybe tomorrow if I do this, maybe I'll start early or whatever. Um, and you know, some people might say, well, is this work? Yes, you dumb fuck. This is like the most important work you could be doing. You know, that, I don't know what people, you know, people do spend their time, you know, especially when they're not working on their jobs and stuff, you know, it's so many things. But some things have to be done. You know, unfortunately, some people have just like filled their life with so many obligations and responsibilities and, you know, things, needful things that they're just like, you know, they don't have the time because, like, you know, they've reached for too much. You know, they've you know, but if you're not in that situation, there's not anything you could be doing. I mean, there is, like, all right, for example, you know, you might be like, a good example is like, remember when you're a kid and like you had a choice between doing your homework or going out and play, and like, you know, so like, you know, so you decide to do your homework, and what happens is, like, so you do better in school, meaning that, like, when you graduate, you are able to, more likely than not, do what you want to do rather than just getting any kind of job because you need a job. All right, so like, so basically, there's some things where definitely, you know, enjoying doing the work is more important than enjoying oneself. And so, like, right now, you could be like, if you're a guy, you could be watching a football game, or if you're a woman, you could be talking on your phone, complaining to your friend, and she's complaining to you, and, you know, and all this stuff. And you enjoy that somewhat, but whatever. I don't know what people do, but anyway, you could have these kinds of like enjoyable experiences, or you could be working on again doing your homework so you can, like, you know, spend the rest of your life feeling so much better. And this applies to working out. A lot of people finally, you know, working out is a great way to feel happier. You know, the research validates this. I don't know why I don't work out more though. But, you know, so like, but my point here is that, like, you know, fine, we've got like a body that is in dire need often of workouts, of like being, you know, made stronger or more resilient, or, you know, to have more endurance, whatever. But our mind is like that. Our mind is like as flabby, as not flabbier than our bodies. You know, because, like, well, no, I can't say that. For a lot of us, it is. I don't know. Well, that notwithstanding, I mean, like, however flabby or not your mind is, like, you know, working on becoming happier, understanding it, I can't but teach. I'm sorry. You know, and hopefully the idea is, like, because I want to do this for me also. You know, I'm not labeling this, you know, happiness video journal. This is George Ortega video journal, but this is what George Ortega thinks about. You know, so that's what he's going to talk about. And since you guys don't know this, and since it's not just about, no, the point is, it's not that you guys don't know this. It's that I don't know this well enough. If I knew this well enough, I'd be blissed out every moment of every day. I mean, like, I'm very happy, you know, like, you know, maybe 95, 96% happy. You know, I want to get that higher. I want to get that to 97 sometime soon, 98 maybe. But like, you know, the average level person, even the happiest people, are only happy 50% of the time. God, if I was like happy only 50% of the day, I'd find that like the most miserable day ever. You know, because I think I got to be happy at least 90% of each day. Because, like, you know, again, you build up a tolerance, an intolerance for not feeling really happy when you work on the happiness. But yeah, so like, so it's important, you know, to recognize that this is just, you know, that you can't be doing anything more important than this. You know, I mean, there's things you have to do because you have to do them. But aside from that, when you have free time, fine. So, like, you know, watch TV 2 hours instead of 3 hours, and You know, like, all right, I'm saying that, but again, I tend to meditate, all right, but very few people meditate, all right. That's not for everyone for whatever reason. And so, like when I meditate on the feeling of happiness. So it's a very kind of like effortless way of becoming happier. But there are other ways of becoming happier. It's unfortunate. Unfortunate we're so clueless as a people because, like, you know, if we were wiser, if we were more intelligent, um, we would be there would be happiness meetups every night of the week in every city, town, you know, there'd be happiness everywhere. You know, there happiness meetings, people getting together for the express purpose of understanding happiness, understanding how to feel happier and all that stuff. And it's interesting. So like, you know, so why am I doing this now instead of a couple of months ago when I was working a lot more about like, you know, promoting the idea we don't have free will? Well, it's because like, you know, it's not an accident that like the holiday season is this time of year because like this time of year, like people, you know, it gets dark here like 5 o'clock and you know it's cold and people aren't out and like it's harder to be happy in certain ways to a certain extent in the winter. So like, so this is like, you know, so this is the perfect time to do this work. Yeah, but all right. So what I don't get, and I might as well, you know, I might as well work on what I don't get. Also, is like there are things that I could do that that could make me happier faster because I've done them before. Um, One of them I explained, I think, last video. You know, sit in a coffee shop with a pad of paper, silently say to yourself, I feel, then write down exuberant, write down joyful, write down ecstatic, write down awesome. Every adjective you can think of that connotes or denotes feeling really good. I don't do that. I mean, I did it 10 years ago and it worked great. So I have no idea why I don't do that, except that it takes a little work. Um, And yeah, and there's like, you know, for example, there's gratitude journals, acts of kindness, stuff like that. There's these classic, they call them interventions, classic happiness interventions that like, for example, if you do this once a week, you know, you every Sunday night, you just like write down five things you're grateful for, you know, that'll make you happier, you know. If you do it like 3 times a week, it'll make you less happy than once a week, interestingly. You got that's why it's good to read these books. These books will give you, and it's not like, you know, these are generalities, you know. They take into account a lot, you know, big, large groups of people, you know. So it may not apply to you directly. I mean, in your case, doing it 5 times a week might be even the best, you know, with gratitude journal. But all right. So I want to get back to what happiness is. Because like the reason, and you know, the reason why don't I devote more time to it than I could or should? Why don't you? It's because you don't value it as well you should, and neither do I. I mean, like I have a kind of like an intellectual value in it. I think I value it a lot more than most people, but I don't value it, I don't think, as much as it could or should be valued. Otherwise, you know, I started working on my happiness about 8 months ago, but I get distracted when I have to work and stuff, so like I don't work on it as much as I could. But if I valued it as much as I should, I'd have been blissed out months ago. As a matter of fact, sometimes like I'll spend 2, 3 days really working on the happiness. You know, it's like imagine going to the gym 2, 3 hours a day for 2, 3 days, whatever. And like during those days and the days after that, I just feel the difference. I mean, like, but then, oh, this is good. So then what happens is like, because yeah, we got to cover all this stuff. So sometimes what happens when you start feeling really happy, what you might then begin to experience is guilt. You know, you might feel, oh my God, you know, like, it's wrong for me to be this happy because like people, not just in other countries, but in this country, in this town, people everywhere are just like are going through rough times or just they're not that happy. So it's kind of like wrong for me to feel that they're happy. And that's, you got to get over that in a way. I mean, like, I haven't figured this out completely. This is something I'm struggling with. So like, I guess by relating it to you, hopefully more of an answer will come to me. But like, for example, back in 2006, when I ended, no, 2005, between Christmas and New Year's, it was, I was gauging my happiness, weekly or whatever, for the 2 years before that. And like, so I determined that I'd reached 100% happiness. I know it's not kind of like logically possible. I'm sure it could have been happier, but that's how it felt. And then, but then what happened was my conscience kicked in, and I started thinking about, well, there's a billion people on the planet without enough to eat, or safe drinking water, or enough medicine, and their kids are dying at a rate of 10 million under 5 a year. About 20, 30,000 each day. So like I kind of like I shifted my focus back then from happiness to trying to end global poverty, and then like, all right, basically what I'm trying to say is that like, and then this goes back to this evil thing, because like, should we explore this now? I think so. All right. I used to be very, very traditionally religious. I spent a few years practicing Orthodox Judaism, which is like praying all day and saying like a zillion blessings and being kosher and all that stuff. And one of the things that I learned, unlike a lot of people who are like Orthodox Jewish, I pretty much limited my Torah study, my study of scriptures and Jewish writings to what they refer to as Pirkei Avot, ethics of the fathers, which is like ethical moral writings. And so one thing I learned back then was that there's this thing in the world that we refer to as Satan, or the enemy, or the evil inclination. And I'll give you the Jewish spiel on it. Basically, this guy Satan, this being, and you can, I don't think we have to give it a tail and horns, whatever. It's like this being who is like consigned by God, who's created by God to tempt us and try to deceive us, and then like when we do wrong, it prosecutes us before God, says, look what they did, and then like it's in charge of punishing us, really nice guy. And so like, who knows why God would have created a being like that, but and again, we're just speaking metaphorically in a sense, but in another sense, no, it's real. In other words, like what I'm trying to say is what this statement that I read said was that a lot of times this evil inclination, this evil force, will make us think that right is wrong and wrong is right. Okay, and that explains so much. In other words, like so many crimes are committed. The person at the time feels, oh yeah, I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, this is a good thing to do. Conversely, like a lot of times we're feeling, oh my God, I feel so horrible. I did something so wrong, whatever, and we punish ourselves. And this incidentally has a lot to do with the belief in free will. In other words, like, one of the prime weapons of this enemy, this evil inclination that just fucks things up for us, is this belief that we have a free will. Because like, if we didn't believe that we had a free will, we couldn't logically, rationally blame ourselves or anyone else for anything. We might identify ourselves, oh yes, that's the person who did that crime, but we can't blame them because they don't have a free will. So fine, we might have to do what we have to do, or like let's say with ourselves. So fine, we do something wrong, and since we know we don't have a free will, we can't blame ourselves in any sense. Like, but because we can't blame ourselves, we can't feel guilty. You can't feel guilty over something that you did not fundamentally do of your own free will, that you were compelled absolutely to do. That's insane. It's impossible to logically feel guilty or blame yourself and then feel guilty for something you had really no choice but to do. That it wasn't up to you. So, all right, so like, yeah, so I think in terms of like the happiness, to bring it back, a lot of times, if we're feeling really happy and then, we find ourselves feeling guilty, I'm not sure, the guilt is there. All right, aside from the free will thing, fine, like, let's say you don't believe in free will, so you're not going to blame yourself. It's not, and even a lot of times, without the free will thing, like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just feeling happy, very happy. But then I think the guilt might also serve as instruction, as wisdom. In other words, like, if you're feeling really, really happy, and I think maybe when you're feeling that way, you want it to last. And ideally, you don't want to have to expend very much energy to be in that state. Ideally, if you had a free will, whatever, you'd just be feeling that way effortlessly, morning to sundown to wherever you go to sleep, whatever. Um, and but but I lost my train of thought. Um, all right, so like, no, I got it. So what happens is, all right, so in terms of like this guilt not being about blame, but just it's maybe it's like misperceived as guilt because we don't really have a word for it that more precisely identifies it. But when you're feeling really, really blissed out and you're kind of like wishing it would just last and if it was effortless and all, then I think that feeling of guilt or that feeling that you're feeling that isn't so very pleasant may be about the recognition that, oh my God, there are a lot of people who aren't anywhere near this. And it's probably a recognition, this is something that the science bears out, that emotions are contagious, but unfortunately, they're more contagious downward than upward. If you're like hanging out, if you're like really blissed out, really, really happy, and you're hanging out with people that are much less happy, two things are going to happen. One, if you're lucky, you're going to have to work a lot harder to not have them bring you down. You're going to have to smile a lot more. You're going to have to, perhaps bring them up. That's one possibility. Another possibility, though, maybe more common, who knows, is that they are going to bring you down. That like, this super happiness you're feeling, you go and try to like share it with your friends and stuff, but they're not all that happy. So what happens? They're going to bring you down. And so maybe that's what that quote unquote guilt is about. When you're feeling like really, really happy and you feel, so maybe it's about like, well, if I'm wise, if I'm feeling really, really happy like this and I want to like feel it more, just like, day to day, more time during each day and all, then it would be wise if I looked around and determined how I could help people around me, people throughout the world, the world in general, like become much happier. Actually, that's what I do. That's why I did my happiness show. That's part of why I'm doing this. I think right now I'm doing this also for my own benefit because like I've been working really hard, for 4 years on this fucking free will thing that people don't understand, they don't appreciate, and so it's been like disappointing. It's been like frustrating, and like So again, that's why I started working on my happiness, and like it has succeeded a lot. I mean, like, I it hasn't again. I if I would have worked on it over these last 8, 9 months as much as I should have, then oh yeah, I could be blissed out. But maybe this is happening now. Maybe like maybe if I'm lucky, because I don't have a free will. If I'm lucky, then this all right. So it's 100. It's at 80 minutes now. It's not an hour. It's not 2 hours. It's 80 minutes. So I'm gonna go. I gotta go further. But if I'm lucky, I will be fortunate enough that the universe will make me do these, daily. Who knows, for 2 hours a day? I don't know, three, however long. I don't care. But that I will just like focus on happiness. Happiness will be my theme, and I hope you appreciate this. I hope that you're getting that. Like I could be talking about technology. I could be talking about the economy, about like politics and all this stuff, and you might find it interesting, but chances are it's actually gonna, you know, reduce your happiness, because well, whatever. But it's not going to make you, it's not going to help you become as happy as you can be, by listening to me think and talk about happiness like this. And even though, like, so sometimes I'm asking questions and I'm not even coming up with answers. Like why did God create pain and evil and stuff? Fine. A lot of this stuff about happiness, it's even beneficial to just pose the question. Let your unconscious, you got to understand, like your unconscious is really where the work goes on. This is another way of understanding why we don't have a free will. Right now, like you're listening to what I'm saying consciously, but it's your unconscious that's actually, it's listening to. It's actually, all right, I'll get into this a little. Basically, our mind really essentially is the unconscious, right? And what we understand as our consciousness is what our unconscious just happens to be focusing on at any given moment. So right now, like our unconscious is taking in, your unconscious is taking in what I'm saying. It's maybe watching me on the screen, whatever, and then it's choosing to make you aware of what it is taking in, because you know very well. I mean, how many people have, like, we've all done this. We're reading through a book, right? And we're like, 2, 3 paragraphs go by and we realize, wait a minute, I don't know what the fuck I just read. So basically we were kind of in a certain sense consciously reading it, because but like our mind, our unconscious was focused somewhere else. So like, and so why am I saying that? So basically, so when you listen to this stuff, and you may not come up with answers for everything, or I may not, whatever, and we may not, but your unconscious is taking this in, and it'll work on it, and that's a cool thing. All right. So what else? So happiness. Happiness ordinarily, our main source of happiness comes from other people. Significant others, your husband, wife, kids, best friends, family, whatever. People who are it could be your coworkers, if you're really close to your coworkers. And that's all right. That's good, but again, consider that the average, and that's just how most people access their happiness. But again, consider that relative to the fact that here in America, the average level of happiness is 70%. So even though that is like the number one source of happiness, it may not be all the best source. Sometimes, there are people who, like, somebody was telling me about somebody who calls her, and then this person just complains to her, just a lot, just doesn't stop and all. And unfortunately, this person isn't able to just say, listen, hey, I got to get going, or like, or even just being honest. Listen, what you're saying is like very disturbing, and it's disturbing me, and I wish you wouldn't do this, But I think what I'm trying to say is that, sometimes this happiness work is is more of an individual work than, for example, than thinking to yourself, well, happiness is basically, for most people, or for a lot of people, about other people, so all I have to do is spend more time with other people. Now, last video I talked about this like conversation retreat where you just like spend hours and hours and hours talking with other people, and I think, if you think of how that would work, then you understand that like being with people has its limitations. People get like peopled out, and actually, relative to that, I think one of the reasons people get peopled out is because like there is like just how we have this amazingly dysfunctional propensity to enjoy other people's suffering on TV, people getting killed and hurt, and oh, it's sick. That's how fucking sick we are. But we enjoy that. Just as we have that same propensity to do that, we have a similar propensity to gush out our problems toward others, and just naturally, in fairness, we want to hear their problems too, or maybe we enjoy this kind of Schadenfreude kind of stuff, this German word for enjoying the failings or discomforts of others. And who knows, maybe there's a part of our mind that like on the one hand is kind of like trying to help them out very genuinely, but on the other hand is kind of like relishing that they're like suffering, because it makes us feel better somehow in comparison. But it's truly sick. It's truly dysfunctional. And so yeah, that's why like people are a good source of happiness, but like happiness to a great extent is, and you hear this, you see this in books, in a lot of happiness books. A lot of happiness books don't get a lot right, but basically the ones that do talk about happiness being an internal thing. It's not like what goes out in your world, that determines how happy you're going to be, whatever. It's really what thoughts you're thinking. Are you grateful for what you have? Are you focused on enjoying life rather than like? Here's the thing. And again, I've mentioned this before, and the reason it's not only okay, but it's actually necessary to mention it again and again and again and again, is because like, with happiness as with a lot of other things, like remember when you were learning math, you don't just learn, 5 plus 7 equals 12, and all right, I know addition, right? Remember how much they had you practice the arithmetic, the addition and subtraction and all that stuff. It's the same with this stuff. You may have to hear something 5, 10, 15 times until it sinks in well enough for you to act on it. So that's very important to know. And so what I was like relating that to was, I forget. I was going to bring something up. I'm getting a little tired. It's almost an hour and a half, but I don't care. I want to like do this. I want to do this. I am getting thirsty though, and I think like after an hour and a half, I deserve to drink something. All right, so like I'm gonna go to the kitchen. It'll be like about 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay. So what was that like? I was like going to mention something about happiness. I forget. All right. Here's something you can do. Something I works kind of well. God, I'm getting tired. Well, yeah. You know who used to do this a lot? Fidel Castro used to give these like 8-hour speeches or 10-hour speeches. I don't know how he did that. I mean, he did that many decades ago, whatever. But some people can just talk and talk and talk and talk. I get tired. Um, but again, this is good because this is an experiment. So how do I talk about happiness? How do I think about happiness when I'm tired as opposed to when I'm not tired? And that's important because, like, in other words, like sometimes we're really, really tired. And the challenge of happiness during those times is going to be different than when we're like full of energy. There's different dynamics to contend with. Um, Now again, I'm not sure I have the answer to that. I guess rest. But okay. I don't know. Part of my mind is saying, like, come on, an hour and a half is enough. But another part of me is saying, no, go for the 2 hours, go for the 2 hours. And here's the thing, talking about goodness, evil, sometimes, like, fine, goodness and evil exist, but a lot of times we don't know which is which. We sincerely don't know. I don't know, is it a better thing for me to continue, or is it a better thing morally, ethically, wisdom-wise to stop? I don't know. So we go on these intuitions. It's a great story relative to this. I think I told it maybe 3 videos back, but it's a good story. These 3 guys, a boy's given a horse, and so like 3 guys in this village want to know if it's a good thing that this boy was given a horse. So there's this wise guy somewhere around that they travel to see him, and they ask the guy, well, this boy was given a horse. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And so the wise person says, well, wait and see. And so all right, so what happens is boy's riding the horse, falls off, breaks his arm. And so the guys go back to the wise person and says, aha, so I guess it was a bad thing that the boy was given the horse. And the wise man said, well, wait and see. So then a few weeks later, war breaks out. All the boys in the village, young boys, whatever, young adults, are drafted off into the military, and a lot of them get killed and stuff or hurt. But the boy who fell off the horse had a broken arm. He couldn't go because he had a broken arm. So then the 3 guys go back to, oh, so I guess it was a good thing. And again, he goes, wait and see, because apparently something happened to the boy. And that's as far as I remember the story. But I think maybe when I first read it, it goes, 3 or 4 more cycles. I don't know. But the gist is that, yeah, a lot of times we just don't know what's right, what's the right thing to do. Yeah, it's frustrating. So, okay. But what is right? I mean, sometimes it's clear. Sometimes it's clear. In other words, happiness is the right thing to feel. Absolutely. If you got a choice between going through your days, mildly happy or mildly depressed, or just not feeling whatever, or if you can be blissed out, definitely that's like a no-brainer. It's not like everything you don't know what's right or wrong. All right. So I've been putting stuff off. I'm gonna talk about myself because yes, because it'll help me be happy, and maybe you'll get something from it also. I've been putting off doing stuff, and I hope tomorrow I'm able to do that. Because sometimes when I talk about stuff, I get myself to do it more. Got to straighten out. Got to do some dishes, but I got to do some paperwork, and I got to go out and get some copies done, and go to this place, and hopefully this guy who, because I don't think I want to. There's this happiness meeting that I generally lead on Thursdays, but I have to be in Manhattan on Wednesday to do a show, and And so I want to kind of like clear off my schedule a bit Thursday afternoon. So I'm going to see if the guy can like, you know, moderate it for me. I'm telling you, there's stuff I got to do, and like, yeah, but that's boring. I mean, like you really want to hear that. Um, that reminds me, like, there's some people who talk, and like they could be talking about the most mundane, boring shit ever, but like their faces are all animated and they're like their eyes. Women do this a lot more than guys. And like so you listen to them and they're like thoroughly entertaining, but they're not talking about anything. I can't do that to you because I can't do that. I don't know how to do that, but it is very interesting. I like, which tells you something. What it tells you is these people, they're kind of very wise in their way because they're basically somehow I think they get that that everything's mundane, that nothing's really so very interesting or whatever. But what the key thing about communicating and being with people is the entertainment factor to, like comedians will make you laugh and like people will tell a good story and so it's not really about the content a lot. I mean, with my stuff, it's a lot about the content, because like it's not as if content's completely unimportant. I mean, like, yeah, if people, all that would have to happen, there are several ways our world, and it's so unfortunate. Oh, it's dismally unfortunate. It's like there's several ways that our world could become so much happier, so quickly, but we're too fucking stupid to do it. Our leaders are too fucking stupid, and so are we. And one way is like, how like you're taught how to like, you sit up straight and, good posture, right? And that makes us feel better, actually, And we, a lot of us adopt that when we're out in the street, we're walking, we kind of like, hold ourselves up well, right? So, relative to happiness, all that would have to happen for our fucking idiotic world to become a lot happier very quickly is that people begin to adapt the very simple postural habit of smiling in public. And you don't have to be grinning from ear to ear. You don't have to like even have your mouth open, baring your teeth and stuff. Just a kind of like a Mona Lisa kind of smile, a little broader than a Mona Lisa, because that's, she's hardly smiling. But a pleasant facial expression, I guarantee you, if people would just do that, the world would become so much happier so quickly. Or everything is about money. Everything is about, get that job, work more hours, make more money so you can buy more things, so you can have more things. But you don't have the time to do so much with those things because you're working more for more things or to, whatever. Money is like, our economy just dictates so much of what we do and why we do what we do. So if we weren't such fucking idiots, which again, it's not our fault, but we are, we would actively seek out happiness as a product. Psychologists, they started doing this in terms of like happiness coaches back around 2003, somewhere along there. And, I think it got some traction, but I think people, a lot of that coaching was one-to-one, and that can get expensive. Imagine like being tutored, for something one-to-one, you're paying $50 to $100 an hour or something. It's, so the idea is like, these psychologists, they took it to that level, but I don't think they had the business savvy or whatever happened, it didn't morph into an industry where like, like you go to Berlitz for language classes or Kaplan for SAT, whatever. or you go, what other kind of, well, you have like, you go to the gym, you have like Zumba classes or yoga classes where there's 10, 20, 30 of you in a class. And when it gets to be that, those numbers, all of a sudden you're not paying all that much for it, you know. And so the idea is like, if people who have the ability to do this have the, I don't, because unfortunately, and I could criticize the psychologist for not doing this. I could criticize myself, you know, getting this stuff, understanding the stuff, understanding the importance of this stuff, and being the kind of person that's able to like take the next step and monetize it and just like scale it up to like where it's an industry, it's a business. Very different skill sets, very few people can do both the research and understand the research and the entrepreneurship, whatever. But that's another way where the world could be, so much happier. Yeah, I mean, I on my website, I was writing a book about happiness, and I stopped a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why, because like around the holidays, I find it hard to do things. I'm gonna pick it back up after the holidays, after the first. But it was basically stuff that I'd already written from that was on my website, or as I took a few, at least one or two independent studies when I was in school. The theme was happiness. So basically, I put this together, and it's going to be very couple 250 pages, whatever. But one of the segments, and hopefully it will be done by May, May of 2015. And I'm going to self-publish it because, like, but one of the strategies that I suggest in the book, and I'm not going to get into this in so much detail. We've got 20 minutes to go, and it'll be 2 hours. And I think I'll end it at 2 hours because I am getting tired. And by the time this gets up there, it's going to be like 9 o'clock. And so, like, yeah, I'm going to end this at 2 hours because this has been good work. So anyway, this idea was like to have television shows, not like mine. I mean, mine was the world's first ever television show about happiness, a series, 138 episodes, pioneering work. Really good work. I mean, I'm a horrible host because I can I can't say more than 5 words without inserting a like, or and like, and like, I didn't have like the, I had a co-host for a while and we brought on some guests and all, but I never paid much attention to production. And, it was a local TV show. All the episodes are on YouTube and all. And unfortunately, like, we had a lot more views when we had them on Google Video, but then Google, like, pulled its video. You don't do that, man. Fucking Google. I'm going to segue on a rant about Google a bit. They had a video service and then they pulled it, meaning they're like, I uploaded 130 episodes of my show on there, all of a sudden it's gone. You can't do that. If you have a video service on the internet and you're somebody like Google, you just don't pull the plug. Then ultimately they bought YouTube, so I re-uploaded my shows to YouTube, but then I lost all my counts. So some of the shows had thousands of views, and so like I uploaded them again 4 years after the shows had been because like happiness was really hot back. So anyway, but another thing that Google's really sucks at recently, it's like it's arbitrarily censoring or limiting its results. In other words, like I like to keep track of articles and videos on free will. All right, so like in the advanced search feature, there's a way to like search where like the term free will appears all in the title, okay? And that's the search, And I know like, I know from, as a fact that they're omitting a lot of entries because I just started a forum about 3 weeks ago or so where like all of the all of the entries have free will in the title. The actual forum has free will in the title. It's like Jordan Chandler, my new co-host on Free Will. And these and many other free will results aren't showing up there. And so like it's not just free will, it's like, so sometimes you think, I gotta look for a new search engine, but it's unfortunate because Google's the one most people use. And like, what the fuck? Why would they do that? I mean, like, in other words, they're showing only about 100 results, when in fact there's got to be many hundreds, if not thousands, that they're just choosing not to reveal. It's not like they're not, their algorithms are finding the web pages. They're just choosing for some stupid reason to not, present the information. That sucks. All right. Anyway, so there's a lot of ways to like make the world much happier. And some are as simple as like everybody smiling. And hopefully that'll happen soon. I don't know. So what else? I'm getting tired, but I'm definitely going the extra, the 14 minutes more because I've decided I'm going to go 2 hours and I'm going 2 hours. And then what am I going to do after this? I think I want to meditate or just listen to a podcast. Again, I've been listening to this series by Michael Donovan, 36-year-old visual artist, photographer, whatever. Brings on interesting guests. And this is a perfect example. If I was like adhering to what I just said over the last almost 2 hours, what I would do is like, settle into my recliner and close my eyes and start meditating and smiling and focusing on the feeling of happiness. I mean, I would do that. But, might as well, this is good. So here's the thing. So like in terms of happiness, yeah, this is perfect because it's we a lot of times have a choice of, we're conditioned from such an early age to seek information, to value information, or entertainment. In other words, like, I'm going to be listening to people talking and I'm going to be learning things that I don't know. So it's about learning. We're conditioned to learn. And so unfortunately, from a very early age, we're conditioned to value learning above our happiness. Oh God, because another way that the world could be made much, much happier, let's say within 10 years or so, whatever, because it would filter out, is if like K through 12, they'd start teaching in every class, history, English, writing, I'm not sure you can do it with math. You can even do it with math. They have those like verbal examples, whatever. You just like introduce happiness and happiness facts and strategies and considerations throughout the entire curriculum, including, of course, having a course on happiness. Not only that, if like our fucking stupid previous generations, people even now, people who are in charge of education, they're so clueless. I mean, like, they teach people how to learn. Well, they hardly even do that. They teach people how to remember stuff. They don't teach people how to understand what they learn, because if they did, then people would understand, would have free will. But like, what they should be doing, I guess I'm getting tired because I'm like getting a little cranky. What they should do as part of, again, there should be a class on happiness, but as part of that class is like, you're going to learn, when you're doing math, okay, there's like one person who's doing math and really enjoys it, okay? There's another person who's doing math and really hates it. Now, obviously, they're doing the same thing one of them might be better than the other, who knows, but one of the people is looking at it differently than the other. I mean, there's got to be something that explains why somebody's hating it and the other one's loving it, right? So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, like, in addition to teaching people stuff and teaching people how to work, because a lot of times you're in school and you're learning how to work. You're learning how to, like, work at learning, work at writing, work at doing math, but they never, ever, 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 ever teach you how to enjoy work. And that's unfortunate, because that is the challenge of adulthood. It's how many people, like, go to work and they get it done. They work 8, 10 hours a day, but they don't enjoy it all that much. You know why? It's because, like, we're not taught that. We're just taught to get it done. So yeah, so all right, so back to, like, so, to my circumstance now. So, like, all right, so 10 minutes more, I'm gonna end this video, and then it's got to, like, process some, then I'll upload it, and it'll take maybe an hour, I don't know. But anyway, like, I mean, this will be pretty automatic. So, like, when I think of what to do next, if I was really wise, I would just sit in my chair, close my eyes, and meditate on happiness, to just, like, feel happier, because I've done it before. It's very easy. You just, like, close your eyes, smile, evoke the feeling of happiness, and maintain it, and it works. But for some reason, and this is puzzle, I don't know if I figured it out, but, like, even though I'm saying this, what I'm planning to do again is, like, go to listen to some podcast. Okay, let's try to, what do you call this? Unpackage this a bit. I think it may be, like, I didn't do all that much today. I didn't have much contact with people. Some days I have, like, meetings and just see people more, talk to people more. Today wasn't a day like that. And so it could be that, like, so we have this desire that happiness is certainly our fundamental desire, but then alongside of that we have our quote unquote needs, like need to maybe socialize being one of them. So that might be it. In other words, like, part of me, wants to, like, feel blissed out, but another part of me maybe feels the need for some kind of, like, connection. That explains it. But and like, well, all right, but here it doesn't explain everything, because, like, there are, like, I've seen some of the videos on happiness in on YouTube, and there's got to be some podcasts. I got to look for a podcast on happiness, because, yes, what I'm going to say is, like, I could be listening to a podcast where, like, I'm connecting socially, but I'm also learning about happiness. And actually, one of the reasons I didn't do that, because I didn't think about it until I just started talking about it, and the thought came to my mind. Another reason why I wouldn't have free will, because if I had a free will, it wouldn't just come into my mind. I would have known it. But yeah, so that so yeah, but that so here's the thing. So, like, no, that might not be the all of it, because, like, I just work. This is pretty hard to just talk 2 hours just extemporaneously, right? And oh yeah, all right. So I'm trying to figure this out. And I think I've known this before, but it's hard to just recall it all the time. But, like, this work, meditating can be work. I try to make it effortless, but if you're trying to work on focusing on happiness, it does require some effort. So that might be part of it. In other words, so the podcast would be entertaining, because this host, he is a good conversationalist, good topics. I learned some stuff. Young kids are very positive generally. So it's entertaining, fun, perhaps not so very, very connected to happiness. Whereas, like, let's say even if I found a podcast on happiness, two things. One, I'd probably know a lot of what they're going to say, and probably, yeah, I'd know it a lot better than they do. And very few people, if any, know happiness more than I do. But the other thing is that, like, it's kind of like, it wouldn't be as entertaining. You know, again, it'd be like a class. So it'd be like doing the homework instead of like, you know, going out to play. So, and I don't feel like, you know, doing homework right now. I feel like, you know, relaxing. All right, it's like 1:54, so 6 minutes. Um, yeah, but otherwise, you know, I mean, I could be doing some computer work, and I don't want to do that. Um, but all right, the thing that, like, you know, thing that I discovered today is that, like, this Buddhist thing about not wanting, fine, it might be wise and all, but I think, at least for me right now, because, you know, half a year from now might be different, I need to focus very directly on happiness. And I'm glad, because, like, you know, in terms of, like, you know, I want these videos to be about me, but on the other hand, I mean, like, that's a bit narcissistic in a sense. I mean, or so it's just like, you know, I'm not interested in me. So, like, you know, why should you be interested in me? I mean, like, so basically, like, it's like, but no. Having said that, um, I am about happiness. That's like, you know, I got this. You know, I started my work on happiness about 30 years ago. I did my TV show on it. I started studying the science on it maybe in 2001. You know, so like, so yes, this happiness stuff is a major part of who I am. So like, I think it kind of makes sense, since happiness is really what the only thing I want, the only thing you want, the only thing there is to want. You know, everything else being a means to what we want, and like happiness being such a central theme in my personal life. Then yeah, it kind of makes sense to bring the two together and to talk about happiness. Okay. And you know what's going to be cool? I mean, even though I said that, yeah, there's going to be a necessity for repeating things because, like, because we have to hear things more than once for them to sink in, there's a part of me that doesn't like to be too repetitive. So what's going to be cool is if the universe fates me to continue doing these, you know, maybe an hour or two a day, whatever, that it's going to be interesting to kind of like figure out what comes out, you know, what are the stuff I talk about. Because part of it is like, you know, like, before I start doing this, the thought comes to my mind sometimes, all right, so what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And like, I'm trying not to have it be work. I'm trying to say, like, you know, I'm trying not to even think about it. I'm trying to say, well, you know, whatever I talk about, I'll talk about. And that's kind of like the challenge that kind of like makes it a bit more interesting for me. It makes it a bit less like work. But it will be interesting to figure out what will be talked about. Okay, I'm getting all sniffly because, like, you know, oh, I gotta like turn this fan thing off because it got cooler. There, I don't know if you heard that fan. I don't know if it all of a sudden became more quiet. Probably not. So what else? So what else? All right, well, that's it for now. It's like 1:58, and I'm going to go the 2 hours, and it really will be 2 hours this time, not an hour and 20 minutes. And I hope you kind of like enjoyed this. You know, you got to wonder again, like the last couple of shows had about 17 views, and like, you know, I wonder how many people, I wonder how much of this most people watch. You know, I would guess very few people watch, you know, the whole thing. I don't know, because people have things to do. But, you know, and it's probably cool to kind of skip around. It probably gets a lot more interesting like an hour and a half into it where I'm like exhausted. Because then you kind of like, you get to view more of like what I would ordinarily not be presenting as much, you know, because I'm trying to present my best side, but the tireder I become, the harder that is. You know, it's like when you're kids or something, you're just like, you know, they finally like, you know, they make you lose it, whatever. All right, so that's it for this now, and I'm glad. I think I finally got this camera to work so that when I boot up tomorrow to do another video, I won't have to like, you know, uninstall and reinstall drivers and do this, that, and the other. Hopefully it'll work. All right, so it's 2 minutes. Hope you're having a nice evening, and I will see you. Oh, wait a minute, I got like 30 seconds. I'm such a fucking perfectionist. Dum. So, so yeah, no, this is it. This is good. And again, I don't know why I'm doing this really, but we'll explore that. Part of it is I'm doing it because, like, no, I really don't know. I mean, like, it feels good. It feels right. But, there are reasons. And we got to get, all right, that's it. I'll see you soon.